Alright, what's going on, everyone? Today we're going to take a look at Mark Rosewater's Kaldheim teaser. I know, we've already done that, but today I just want to go back and look at it now that we know what the cards are. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to, retroactively look at it and then see what cards he was actually talking about. Because I don't think anyone does that, right? Like, we always look at it ahead of time as a teaser and it's really fun. But, like, it seems kind of interesting to go back and see, like, what cards were he hinting at. We could see if my predictions were accurate. They weren't very accurate, but, it'll be interesting. So here's the list. I'll leave a link to it. I'll clip out the thing that I'm talking about at any moment, but, you can look at the whole list and follow along if you want, if you prefer to do that. But anyway, first there was supposed to be a 5-color legendary enchantment, and my prediction was it was going to be a representation of the Rainbow Bridge that connects the realm of the gods and the realm of mortals, and that's exactly what it was. Prismatic Bridge, I nailed it. I mean, it seemed kind of obvious, a 5-color legendary enchantment. The Bifrost makes perfect sense. So yeah, Prismatic Bridge, got it. Next was a 6/6 for 3. So I made the comparison to Rotting Regisaur, saying it was going to be, a big creature but with a pretty hefty drawback. And what we got was Egon, God of Death. The drawback being you need to have cards in your graveyard to exile every turn or it dies. So it's hard to get it out on turn 3 and have it survive. Although it does draw a card and replace itself when it dies, so it's not terrible. At worst, you can pay 3, play it, and it kind of cycles in a sense because it'll die and you'll draw a card. So interesting. Next was a card that allows you to kill someone with poison, and this turned out to be Finn the Fangbearer, which will dish out 2 poison counters every time a creature with Death Touch hits a player. So that's pretty cool. I actually thought this may have been tricky wording, like, technically a card kind of poisons, like from a flavor perspective, but doesn't have literal poison. But no, we do get literal poison back in standard. Next was a card with a crazy activation cost. I didn't really know what this was. I speculated that maybe it was a Door to Nothingness reprint, but the activation cost didn't exactly match up. So I mentioned that, but I didn't think that was actually going to be the case. I wasn't really sure, but it turns out to be the World Tree. If you can manage to pay the cost, you can dig through your deck and put all the gods in play. So pretty crazy. You just need a ton of mana and lots of different colors of mana. Next was a card that uses a creature's toughness to perform an action, normally using a creature's power. So I had 2 guesses. I thought it was going to be either like a Doran effect, right? Like a creature or an enchantment or an artifact, whatever, that makes your creatures deal damage based on their toughness, like Doran. Like, I don't know if this effect has a name, but I always call it the Doran. Like, Doran was the first card that I remember that did this, so I always call it the Doran effect. If there's a name for it, let me know in the comments, I guess. My other guess was maybe it's a fight card that uses toughness, like a deal damage to target creature equal to the toughness of one of your creatures, right? There's lots of fight and deal damage based on power, but it turned out to be Giant Ox, which can crew vehicles with its toughness, which is not what I was expecting at all. By the way, totally forgot until just now, the image quality on these Kaldheim cards are absolutely terrible. I apologize for that. I made an entire video about why cards appear blurry soon after release, and the answer is just because we don't have high quality scans. So if you're watching this on a big screen, apologies. You might not notice on a smaller phone screen, but these cards look really, really bad at full HD on a big screen. I apologize for that. Next was numerous new non-creature tokens. So I thought maybe we'd get like enchantment tokens, right? We have lots of artifact tokens. Maybe we'd get enchantment tokens if there's going to be an enchantment theme. There's not an enchantment theme, and also we got shards, icy manoliths, and replicated rings. So yeah, didn't really expect these, but all technically new tokens, non-creature tokens. The shards come from the new Planeswalker, which can produce the shards and use them to draw cards. All right, pause for a second. All right, first off, let me apologize. My voice sounds like crap. I'm editing this on a laptop. I'm using the laptop's built-in microphone to record this really quick. I only just now noticed that this freaking card is a token enchantment, just like I predicted. I predicted token enchantments. I saw this card so many times. I saw it when it was spoiled. I saw it when I grabbed all the images for this video. I saw this card like 4 or 5 times. Only just now realized while editing that it is actually a token enchantment. So that's cool. I was right. I didn't realize I was right for a very long time. I saw this card repeatedly, didn't realize it was a token enchantment, but it is. So there we go. I was right. Token enchantment. Take that. Alright, back to the video. And we also got Icy Manaless, which come from Ice Shaper. It can produce Manaless that produce mana to help activate its big ability. It's not that exciting though, just because it's uncommon, so not super powerful. And then the Replicated Ring, it comes from Replicating Ring, which is a mana rock that eventually explodes into 8 more mana rocks. So those are your 3 new non-creature tokens. Next was a card that can make a token of target permanent for no mana. So I thought this would require like paying life or something, right? It would have to be like a big drawback. Otherwise, there's like some dangerous combo potential, but it's actually maybe a little bit more limiting. I guess it depends, but it's actually Orvar. So you can copy anything, but you have to target it with a spell first. So you can't just like, endlessly copy stuff unless you can copy like an instant or sorcery spell first. But if you target anything with a spell, it'll create a copy of whatever you target. And also if you get forced to discard anything, then you get a token of that too. And all of that technically costs no mana. So clever, interesting. Next was a black creature that can copy creatures. And I thought this was going to be tied to the previous one. I thought it was going to be like, oh, it's the same card. You have to pay life to copy. So there's a limit to how many times you can copy before you just die. But instead it's Valkyrie, and he can become a copy of cards that he exiles. Like he exiles stuff from your opponent's hand, and then he can become a copy of those cards. So not quite what I was expecting. Next was a creature type that players have been requesting for years. I had no clue. What this was. I speculated that maybe it was Berserkers, but those already exist. My best guess was like maybe witches, but like I don't know if people have really been asking for witches. Turns out it's Phyrexians. How the heck? Who is going to predict that Phyrexians were going to be on Kaldheim? I mean, there's technically only one, but technically there's a Phyrexian, and technically Phyrexians now have a creature type. Next was a card with a bunch of activated abilities. You can read this, but basically lots of activated abilities, and this ended up being Ascendant Spirit, which is sort of a continuation of this weird cycle of cards that all like kind of level up. I mean, there's level up is a mechanic that already exists, but they get more and more powerful as you dump mana into them. So we have a continuation of that sort of series. It's not a dual colored card like all the others, but it is. It requires snow mana, so there's that. But yeah, we get another one of these. These cards are kind of interesting, so another one of those. So next up was a whole series of just like random text. So we can go through this pretty quick. One was Protection from Gods, and that was Sigrid, God Favored, which does indeed have protection from gods, and it's also like a pseudo banisher priest. We've had similar cards to this recently, and they're usually pretty good, so this is probably decent just because, like a 3 mana creature in white that can exile another creature is not bad. Next we had Sacrifice 5 Treasures, and this turned out to be Magda, whatever. It could sacrifice 5 treasures to tutor up artifacts or dragons. So if you can produce lots of treasures, you can just tutor up lots of dragons. Could be pretty interesting. I mean, probably like a commander, right? I don't know much about commander, but this seems like something that would be a fun commander card. Just build a deck that's designed to generate treasures, and then you just start tutoring out all kinds of crazy dragon and artifact shenanigans. Seems like a thing. Next is if 3 or more creatures died this turn, and I didn't really have much to say about this just because it's such like a generic thing. Like how am I supposed to predict what the card would be? But it turned out to be Inga, which lets you draw 3 cards if 3 or more creatures died the turn it dies. Like if it dies and 3 other creatures died, or 2 other creatures, does it count itself? I'm not actually sure, but it'll draw 3 cards. So it's kind of like board sweeper insurance, and not bad. Next was choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Once again, I didn't really have a good guess on this other than I said it'd be similar to Haktos, right? Haktos also chooses a card at random. So I thought it's going to be a permanent that would choose, a random number and have that, be an ability of some sort, but it's actually a spell. We got Tybalt's Trickery, which is a counter spell in red, but it has this randomness that makes it kind of unreliable, kind of chaotic, also kind of combo-y. There's some speculation that there might be a ridiculous combo deck with this that you can target your own stuff and then get Emrakul. So we'll see how that goes. Next was Except for Giants, Wizards, and Lands. And I thought this was going to be a Wrath effect, like destroy all creatures except giants, wizards, and lands, or destroy all permanents except giants, wizards, and lands. And I was close. It ended up being Cyclone Summoner, which bounces all of those things except for giants, wizards, and lands. So not a destruction spell, but rather a bounce, but kind of got it. Close enough, right? I was close. I'm desperate. I haven't gotten many of these right, so close enough for me. Then there was a tutor for runes. I mean, not much to say here. Something that tutored up runes, and it ended up being tagged onto a dwarf creature. Simple enough. 3 mana 2/3 tutors up a rune. Also reduces the cost of them. So there you go. And speaking of runes, I thought it was going to be a modifier on cards. If you saw my prediction video, I said it's going to be like tribal and arcane, where it doesn't really matter. It's just like a modifier in the text box that would add like shenanigans with tutors and stuff, and for the most part I was right about that. Runes are enchant permanents, which already exist sort of, and they technically get stronger if they enchant creatures or weapons, right? So it's flavorful in the sense that if you put a rune on someone's body or if you put a rune on a weapon, they get more powerful. So there's flavor there, but basically it's an enchant permanent. And then the rune modifier is basically just to designate that, hey, if you put this on a creature or an equipment, it, you know, you get more out of it, which makes sense. But basically similar to tribal and arcane, and that doesn't really matter. Like all the text that matters is in the text box, but you know, it does designate that, hey, this is good on creatures and weapons, basically. Next was a card that wanted you to control 3 legendary permanents, and we got Kovari, which is a 4 mana 2/4 but becomes a 6/6 if you control 3 legends, and it can also dig for more legends. Seems okay. It's kind of a high cost, like it's a steep requirement to get a 4 mana 6/6 when you can just play like Yorvo, get a 3 mana 4/4, and it's usually a 6/6 in a couple turns. You can also just pay 1 more mana for like Elder Gargaroth. So it's interesting. The power of this card will be more determined on whether that search effect is good, because a 4 mana 6/6, it's good, right? A 4 mana 6/6 is great, but the conditions are kind of steep for green considering what we already have in standard. Anyway, next was X is the number of vehicles you control plus the number of equipment you control. My only comment here, because I didn't really have any way to know what this was going to be, but I did say that dwarves care about vehicles and equipment, so it's probably going to be dwarf related, and sure enough, it is this card, which puts lots of dwarf tokens in play based on how much equipment and vehicles you have. It's actually kind of convenient, because if you have lots of vehicles and equipment but no creatures to, you know, equip them to or crew them, then this puts out creatures so you can use your equipment and vehicles. So interesting. The next card cared about having 7 or more life in your starting life total, and it's Righteous Valkyrie, which will give all of your creatures, including itself, +2/+2 if you can pull that off. Also helps you gain life. I didn't have much to say here either. I just said that, you know, Wizards of the Coast has been printing a lot of cards that care about this, and yeah, this is another one. But this card's pretty good just because it's a life gain payoff, but also helps you gain life, so you have both of those effects on one card. Next was create X of those tokens instead, and it turned out to be Starnheim Unleashed, which can create a 4/4 angel token if you cast it, or a bunch of 4/4 angel tokens if you foretell it. So it creates a 4/4 or X of those instead if you foretell. And then we got a big list of creature types. Here they all are. I'm going to go through these pretty quick. So there was an angel warrior, and there were actually multiple angel warriors because Valkyries are angel warriors, so here they all are. Next was a zombie rogue, and this ended up being Draugr Thought Thief. Then there was Dwarf Cleric, and there were multiples of these as well. There were multiple Dwarf Clerics. The Horse Spirit ended up being Cosmos Charger, which reduces foretell costs and lets you do it at instant speed. The Vampire Dragon is Emmerstrom Predator, which gets bigger as it attacks and eats up graveyards. And then we have 5 legendary creatures. We knew there were going to be lots of legends just because we knew there were going to be gods and whatnot. So 5 legendary creatures. The legendary wolf is Sarulf Realm Eater, which I believe was one of the first official cards previewed. The bird spirit legend is Vega the Watcher, which actually seems pretty sweet, letting you draw cards when you foretell them, or just whenever you cast like adventures, right? Anything that gets cast from exile draws a card, so adventures will draw cards. The giant wizard is Agar the Freezing Flame, which lets you draw cards if you overkill something. So if you know something has 3 power and you deal 4 damage to it, it will trigger Agar and draw cards. The demon berserker is Carter Doomscourge, which is the least intimidating name ever because it sounds like you're saying Carter Doomscourge. God dang it, Carter. But it forces your opponent to attack with all their stuff, probably because they're coming to make fun of Carter's name. Like, you're a demon berserker, but your name's Carter. I mean, nothing wrong with the name Carter. It's just, you know, it's not very intimidating. Maybe we should pronounce it Cardor. It's just not intimidating, man. And then the last card was the Squirrel Legend, which ended up being Toski, Bearer of Secrets, which is just plain annoying. Draws lots of cards. It's obnoxious. It's really obnoxious. Very annoying squirrel. gonna be a pain in the butt. But anyway, there you go. It's kind of interesting going back and seeing these after the fact, right? I mean, who knows? Maybe going back will make us better at predicting these if there's another teaser release for Strixhaven. If there is, I will react to it, of course, just because it's fun. It's really fun just looking through the teaser and trying to guess what's gonna happen. So assuming, of course, that there is a teaser release for Strixhaven, we'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.